So I just posted that last video, I watched it. I realized how much I look like Gollum. For me, my precious art is my cigarettes. And I haven't quit yet. And I'm Frodo. I mean, we are all these things. I'm not saying I'm these things, but we do, I mean, those archetypes, they go through us. So yeah, that's what I drew. I realized it didn't show up super great. But you have Dorothy a dot, and you have Toto a dot, both in the same place, Toto runs back to Dorothy, even though he runs in a straight line, but a circle with infinite circumference is a straight line. And goes around the world, swirling in the tornado. This isn't exactly a tornado. This is the simplest way to break it down. So then you have, the structure that creates the Star of David sound. And he had a slingshot, which was a string with a rock in it that he swung around, which is the same as those Aborigine dudes used to make music. And he played a song that the Lord loved. And Lord refers, I believe, to Kronos versus God Jupiter, which relates to what I said about the berries. The beer versus the bread, which has to do with the D for Delta. Change, which has to do with time. So now we're in Oz, right? Ooh. Not sure if you can hear my guts growling right now. Got the yeast in the bowels of the devil. Jesus went to hell. So I got my yeast in my gut. In the bowels of the devil, where I have all the bad stuff. Because I ain't pure yet. Pretty sure I got a tapeworm. A big one. The only time I ever saw like how big a tapeworm was when I was watching Dr. Oz on Oprah. ZOO. Yeah, but we're talking about 1 by root 3. So you got this, which kind of represents the Jews because it has the Star of David built into it. Because it has this triangle and this triangle, Star of David built into it. But also with the Jews is 22 letter alphabet. So you have the 6 pointed star, the hexagram, the carbon that represents an aspect of, Judaism, Judah. Judas Iscariot is scary, carrot. The Cowardly Lion was scary. But he's just so sad and scared. This object, now a tetrahedron, is built out of all triangles. Amplituhedrons. And there's 22 that make a circle. And there's 3 of them, but they don't line up at the center. They don't line up the way we would normally think. The center is empty. And it does make a pole in the plane. And it was Heraclitus, Heraclitus, Heraclit, just saying, that said everything was built out of fire. And tetrahedron symbolizes fire, an upward one. But yeah, I was building on root 2, but we're talking about 1 by root 3. Where'd it go? So we have our dot, our Dorothy, our dot, our Toto, Toto Dorothy, Toto Dorothy. Never eat soggy wheat, because he was stolen by the lady in Black and White World that looks like, that is the Wicked Witch of the West. And then Toto comes back to Dorothy, but they're one and the same because they're 2 and the same. And then the tornado comes. And Dorothy's in the middle of the tornado. Now, as I described before about the roots, the root high. So it's upside down. So in the beginning of the movie, Dorothy is lifted. But if we think of it in reverse, because the roots are high, because we're going backwards and upside down, Dorothy falls, She falls into her bed. Dorothy felt pretty good. And then, uh-oh. But Dorothy, as she spins in that tornado, Dorothy's always in the center. So spin, 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 spin. All these things are spinning around, spinning outside the window. The windowed monad. And I'm not even saying this is how necessarily like all of reality or structure is built, but this is the way we came to know things. Building things with circles preceded building things with lines, and that's where the old Vedic math, Indian math, kind of has its beat because they mastered that, or their predecessors. And now you got the colors of the rainbow, which is the colors of the color wheel. If we're talking about the 12 color wheel, or the 6 color wheel, or the 12 color wheel, not the Russian 7 color wheel, 14 color wheel. Colors of the rainbow, the David Star, which is the 3 primary colors and the 3 complementary colors. But that has to do with the whole like Heraclitus, everything is built of fire type of thing. Like, there are 3 primary colors. But when we're making color with paint, it's what, red, blue, yellow. But when we're making things in light, it's red, blue, green. Depends on your type of blue. And that splits blue into 2, kind of like the 7 colors of Roy G. Biv. It's not just Roy Gubov, Indigo Children. So now she's in the rainbow world. I'm not doing this, breaking it down totally great or totally perfect. It's a very rudimentary way of doing it. Rudimentary, but it's going to make sense. So then she meets 3 dudes, and she starts going around yellow brick, red brick road. Now, it's the yellow brick and the red brick road. So there's 2 roads, and they spiral around each other. Kind of like even and odd numbers kind of spiral around each other. But she's not on the red brick road, she's on the yellow brick road. Which is to say, in a certain sense, every other. So if we made a spiral with one triangle and we made a spiral with the other triangle, she's only on one of them. So we're going to skip a point as she skips along that yellow brick road. Oh yeah, and she kills the Wicked Witch of the East. So, the East, if we're looking at this as a complex plane, then the East is 1. You know, that's where we begin. The East is the beginning. We consider like the East with March, with Mars, with Moses. But the East represents 1. As it so happens, in this symbology, the East should be like this. which turns the north into a Z, Oz. So are we dealing with the XY plane, or are we dealing with the XZ plane? Root, high. But we're not using the I part of Y, we're using the I part of Y. And I, you can have a, if you're building a cube and you're dealing with complex numbers, most typically you have an XYI plane, which is similar to the XYZ plane, and it's the Wizard of Oz. So we have a ZX plane, and we're looking for the high, because she was high, and she fell low. So starting at the east, we're going to go on the yellow brick road. We're going to skip a point because we're not going on the red brick road. And the red brick road, that has to do with red shift. Anyway. And we're going to meet the Scarecrow. And after the Scarecrow, we're going to meet the Tin Man. Scarecrow is Scariot. Is Carrot. Then we're going to meet the Tin Man. Then we're going to meet the Cowardly Lion. Now, if you're talking mathematically, this is 1. If this is the complex plane, because we're in the imagination now, we're in a dream world, the imaginary world. They start out in the real world, real numbers, and they end up in the dream in the imaginary world, imaginary numbers. So this is the dream world. And we start out in the east, which is 1. In the 3, I'll break this down more later with the numbers. But these 3 points represent the complex cube root of 1. And the peculiar thing about these points in particular, well, about a lot of other points too, but this is the simplest way you can break it down without using a ruler, without using a straight line, with only using the circles. And they say like lines are straight or light is straight. Light moves in a straight line. But light doesn't travel through like time. I heard a quote once, all photons are the same age as they were at the Big Bang because they don't experience time. That's you. But as you multiply these points, they just end up in the same place, going around and around, and they never move. And I remember when I discovered that, before I discovered Eisenstein, like I had to look it up later. I discovered this while I was trying to discover phi. And it's interesting, the dude named Eisenstein, and then there's the Russian filmmaker named Eisenstein. Awesome connection there. And I talked about those who've been around the world and those who have built all this stuff, but we have to remember too that it's not just that. Anytime you do anything, if you got your heart and your mind in it, man, you're tapping in. You're tapped in. It's like this outfit I'm wearing today. Like, I didn't realize it, but I'm wearing like the upside down. I'm wearing like the upside down costume of Dorothy. You know, I was gonna change before I made this video from the last one. I was gonna change into my sweatpants, and then I was like, wait a minute. I'm wearing Dorothy's. I'm wearing I've got my ruby red slippers. I got my slip, and I got my dress. You know, and I got my braided brunette hair. Weird. And I didn't mean to do it. It's the way it happened. But that's the thing too. Once you start looking for things, you can find things anywhere. But things do condense. Like, all this crap does eventually condense on something that means something. So then you got the Trinity. You have those three strong uncles protecting Dorothy, the dot. And they're 3 and 1. And I'll break it down more later, but what this all has to do with is 1 to root 3 whoops, and it's reciprocal. It's root upside down, because you have 1 over root 3. You know, proportions and fractions, and 1 over, whoops, keep doing that wrong. 1 over root 3, which is also root 3 over 3. The same thing. 1 over root 3, and if you flip the fraction, you get root 3 over 1, which is root 3. So you have root 3 over 3 to root 3. So in that sense, it's kind of like you're dealing with oneness and threeness, because 1 is root 1. Shit. 1 is root 1. Kinda. Oh yeah, and one more thing about the whole Todo deal. So in this way, Todo represents 2 points that are the same point, but they represent 2 points. You build it all out and you get the Star of David, a Jewish reference. But it's also, because 2 is 2 in English, Do is 2 in Greek, I think. Dodecahedron, right? 2. But then that comes to 22. Which is how many letters there are in the Hebrew alphabet. And it's also the number of separations along a string in old school Vedic music, which is still kind of broken up into the 12, but it's different. They have a little bit different spans, but it's still centered around the whole idea of like 12. but there's 22. Shruti. Sh. Root. E. E to the I pi. E to the I ta. So now, alright, at the end of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, and there's more to do with it in Glinda the Good Witch with her 5-pointed star and her very wild carrot-looking helmet, not to mention the Wicked Witch of the West, which looks like a wild carrot first year, the black and the green, the opposite of the red and the white. So that's bad. But then there's all the little munchkins sending her on her way, also in black and greens. So yeah, she was up here because the roots are upside down because it's root high. And then she falls into the dream world. And then she comes back. Her 3 uncles in black and white. Her 3 uncles in the imagination. Now she's... So now we got to think of it as tetrahedron, because you got the 3 and 1. You have this triangle, but Dorothy was up here before. Now she had a dream. She had a vision. She wrote a story. She was up here before. You got your triangle, and you got one more point, a tetrahedron. The Trinity is a collapsed tetrahedron. The Trinity. Well, Michelangelo hid in a place most of us wouldn't want to look and think with our mind's eye. She was up here. But then she went there and she had a vision, and she found her heart. She found her reason, and she found her guts, her courage. And she brought them all together. And she expanded her circle. But how did she expand her circle? She said, I don't need to look any further than in my backyard. Also symbolizing the pupa and the gut. That mean lion who's really a coward? Indigestion. Eating the wrong things. Having the wrong microbiota and the wrong bacteria and the wrong yeasts in the gut, which I still do. But this is important too. Everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. We want to turn on that light, but it's got to fit with time. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't happen for all of us. And whoever they are, not just they, because there is they. And we need to pray for them. Because once they realize what the they of theys have done, the theys are going to have a very, very, very bad time. We need to forgive them. There's a lot of evil people. We need truth and reconciliation for everybody, including me, including you. Sympathy for the devil, yes, and empathy for God, who sees through time in that butterfly effect. If a butterfly flapping its wings can make a tornado, and if a butterfly flapping its wings in wherever can cause a tornado on the other side of the world, then what do you think it takes for God to do when you make a prayer for something bigger than a butterfly flapping its wings? Tap your heels 3 times. There's no place like home. People have been around the world, not the nomads, you and me, going on these lines, on these air. I've been to Paris. I've been to, here, I've been there. But can we even identify the weed growing outside our own front door? Never mind the back door. So she was a tetrahedron that fell down into the two-dimensional plane, into the dream world, into the imaginary world. But then she had a vision. She met pieces of herself. She met her intellect. She met her love. She met her guts, her wherewithal, her gumption, her gump, Forrest Gump. Keep it gump. But now her tetrahedron's bigger. Before, this was her tetrahedron. She was up here, and then she fell down in the dream world, had a vision, into the infrared. Particles, waves, now she has a bigger triangle, and when she wakes up, she's at a higher place. Before, her tetrahedron was here. Now, her tetrahedron is here. The 3 uncles lift her up out of the pig pen. This was Dorothy and Toto's circle before. Now this is Dorothy and Toto's circle. Dorothy is in them, and they are in her. And that's all about us. It's about me, it's about you, it's about everybody. Every book, every person lifted. I hope that was good.